but I did go see A Quiet Place Day One, which I had very little expectations
Oh
for.
yeah, yeah. I've heard this is actually pretty good.
I don't really like A Quiet Place. I didn't think it was that good. I
Never
think
seen it.
John Krasinski's direction is boring, lame,
He's
and
great. Oh,
he, of course,
I
I
thought
never
you were
saw
gonna say
this.
it's really good.
No, I never saw the second one because I had no interest. But I was like, I need to see a movie. I did not realize Quiet Place Day One is not directed or written by John Krasinski. It's actually directed by a guy named
Yep.
Michael Cernosky, who I haven't seen any
Yeah.
before.
So he directed Pig, which I saw in the theater and I liked.
Oh, okay. So this film is actually quite good. I was legitimately surprised.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Lupita gives an incredible performance, as she always. I mean, I think she should be in a lot more stuff than she is because everything I ever see her in is just she gives these amazing performances and she really goes all out in
Yeah.
this. And the reason this film works so well is it plays on that classic trope of like we are trapped in a city, in this case Manhattan, and the whole goal of the film is to get out of Manhattan. Like that's the only thing that they have to do. And it is touching. It is wonderful. This isn't a spoiler because this is the very first thing you learn is Lupita is in
Mhm.
hospice. So like you
Yeah.
already know from the beginning of the movie, like she's gonna die and she knows that. Like she's dying. So instead of, trying to escape the city, she's like, I'm gonna go to this pizza place. Right. That's her whole goal is like, I'm gonna go get some pizza. And the action sequences are exciting. The CGI, which they don't use very much of it, you actually only see the creatures a couple of times. The creatures look creepy and wet and they look very good.
Cool.
But most of the film is just like these people walking around and there's almost no dialogue because the idea is that, right, it's a quiet place, you can't talk. But unlike, which, everyone talks about, oh, there's no dialogue in the original Quiet Place, but they signed the whole time. So there's still dialogue, right? It's still a film completely dependent on dialogue. But with A Quiet Place
Yeah.
Day One, the director's like, fuck that. Most of the film is no dialogue at all. That's what's so incredible about the film is like you've lost the crutch of dialogue, which is such a big part of a movie. I mean, we just talked about a movie where the
Yeah.
whole thing was just dialogue, right? So this is the inverse of that, and they do an incredible job. I
Yeah.
think you have to give a really good performance as an actor when you're not given the crutch of dialogue, right? You can't give those kind of big, long, epic speeches. You kind of just have to move around. And to make that enjoyable for 2 hours, just
Yeah.
people walking around and not a lot of action sequences. There really is only three big action sequences in this whole film, is very impressive. So, like I said, I came to this movie not expecting anything. I'm not a Quiet Place person. I wasn't someone who's really excited, like, oh yeah, the next A Quiet Place movie.
Yeah. Who gives a shit?
Just watch it on his own. You don't need to watch the other movies. There's very little explanation of anything. So I guess if you don't understand how this world works, it might be a little confusing. But I think you get it pretty quickly because they never explain, oh, you can't talk or any of that stuff. Like you just have to know. But as long as you can buy into that, as long as you understand that, it's actually very enjoyable. Great set designs. I mean, it looks like they're in an abandoned New York City. And it's definitely a lot darker because at the beginning of this film, these aliens come into Earth and they come to Manhattan, and the US government's like, we're just going to bomb all the bridges from
Yeah.
Manhattan. We don't give a shit. We don't care. And you see them watch it. They're like, oh shit, we're all going to die. And they have that realization that there's no way for an escape. And the US government doesn't give a shit. They don't care because that's what would happen, right? Like that's much more realistic. They don't care about you, right? Their only concern is that they don't die. Surprisingly enjoyable. I was the only one in the theater, by the way, because this has been in theaters for a while. So
Yeah. It's like on its way out.
I got a personal performance. So I got to be in the whole theater alone, which I don't love seeing movies by myself in a theater. It feels a little awkward. But the one thing I do like is I am a very vocal movie watcher. And when I'm in a movie with other people, I don't vocalize as much. But when I'm by myself, I do like to laugh and scream and be like, what's going on? Like all that kind of stuff. Like I enjoy that part of the cinematic process. So for all of our listeners out there, it's probably not going to be in theaters by the time anyone hears this, but you should go watch it wherever it is because it is surprisingly enjoyable.
Yeah. No, I heard good things about it.